This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshido. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the lean builder. Hoots and Chili Bros on the ground. Say what's up, my brother Mike.
What's up, everybody? So glad to be here.
I'm loving this, man. I'm getting kind of this little rhythm going with the Chili Bros, becoming an honorary Chili Bro. And today, you and I get to sit down with one of my lean idols, one of my lean heroes, I will say, Mr. Mack Story. And Mack, from my perspective, you're someone who has taken leadership and just completely flipped it upside down, right? Like my whole life, I was taught that, hey, you got to get smart. You got to know things. You got to know how to do things, the technical side of the business, like your resume, your credentials, your competence. It's all so important. But what I've learned from you and really and Mike, you've reinforced it in my life is it's only 13% of it. And so I'm excited to sit down today with you, Mack Story. Again, second podcast for you and help really understand that other 87%. And as we dive in there, man, I just want you to take it for a minute. High level, who are you? Where do you come from? Remind some of those that didn't see the first podcast and just give us a flavor for who Mack Story is.
All right, Adam and Mike, good to be with you guys today, man. It's a privilege to be back on the Hoots on the Ground podcast, especially it's like I got double barrel shotgun pointed at me as I'm looking at the screen up there. So I'm stuck in the middle of you guys. That's awesome, though. I always tell people just where I'm from is a little town in Alabama called Tallassee. Tallassee, Alabama is between Auburn and Montgomery, Alabama, about halfway between, about 10 minutes north of I-85. And I tell people it's so small, the people who live there ain't never heard of it. But my background's manufacturing, blue-collar guy. And first 20 years from 1988 to 2008, we're spending production manufacturing shops, machine shop for the first 14 years, doing lathes, mills, drills, cutting steel, gear shapers, all that sort of stuff, programming CNC lathes and programming all those machines and doing drafting, cost estimation, engineering stuff. And then I moved on and become a process engineer at another company. And we were making mufflers for big rigs, actually, in that specific plant. At that time, they had about 70 plants around the world. And I went from process engineer cost estimation engineer, process engineer, and then lean coordinator, and then lean manager for our facility. So the last 3 years I was there before I resigned to start my own lean consulting business. We went from minus 3% gross profit margin to plus 35% gross profit margin as we rolled out lean officially. Went from batch and queue to lean, and I had a lot of fun doing it. That's why I started my own consulting business. And 4 years of that, I was booked solid every week from 2008 to 2012. And then by 2012, I decided I want to focus on the people side of lean, which, respect for the people versus continuous improvement. People like you guys who know about lean know that I'm still doing lean. A lot of people think I don't do lean anymore. And in the traditional sense of what people think about lean, most people think about continuous improvement. They think about all the tools and the process, all the process stuff. And that's unfortunate the way that I see it, because I think the people side is the most important pillar of it. The Toyota teaches 2 pillars of lean. I actually teach 2 foundational layers. And I teach that foundational layer is respect for the people. And I use the 87-13 principle and say that it's 87% of the foundation. It's the thickest layer. And then you pile on continuous improvement on top of that. And that's the 13%. You got to have it, but it's not the most important. So 2012, I stopped doing traditional lean, continuous improvement, Kaizen team facilitation. I logged 11,000 hours from 2005 to 2012 facilitating Kaizen events. And then I decided go step out and do nothing but leadership. So I went from making quite a bit of money to zero on purpose in 2008 to start my lean consulting. And then 2012, I did it again. And it was hard to give up my regular salary in the plant back in 2008, but it was really hard to give up my consulting fees in 2012, but been worth it. My life's been better than it's ever been since I took this journey in 2012. 14 years into it now. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm super interested where so at what point in that journey did you pick up on this 87-13 principle and percentage? And when you talk about that 87%, like what specifically do you mean by that?
Yeah, so 87-13, I picked up on that pretty early, but 2008 is when I picked up on personal growth and leadership development. When I left manufacturing, I just discovered the 7 habits of highly effective people kind of by accident. And I don't know if you would really want me to go into that too much, but I'll go into but that happened in 2008 and been reading every day since then. 18 years of reading every day. You can learn a little bit, even if you ain't that bright. But if you just chisel away at it. And so that's what I've been doing. It didn't take long though, probably within a couple of years, maybe 2010, 2012, somewhere in that time frame, I was reading something or heard John Maxwell talking about it. It seems like maybe I was reading, but I can't remember. I reading so much and watch so many videos and audios and all that sort of stuff. But I heard him referencing the 87-13. He didn't call it a principle. He just taught us that, our character is responsible for 87% of our influence and our success in life. And only 13% comes from competency. And that's kind of the way he taught it. He just said it like that. And he gave credit to a research study from Harvard and Stanford that he had heard about or read about some point in his life. And that's where, he says it come from. I did a little research, so I'm going to grab my phone right here because, as they say today, I brought the receipts. So,
I like that.
Because some folks, want to know where did it really come from. So, I did some research before, but I can't ever remember. But it came from actually, what's cool about it is if you've ever read the 7 Habits and are familiar with that book, Dr. Covey talks about when he teaches the 7 Habits that basically kind of before World War II, our country and society was kind of based on the character ethic, is using his language. And then kind of after World War II, we kind of shifted to the personality ethic. So the character ethic is how to actually be as a person. The personality ethic is how to appear to be as a person. You run across some of them folks trying to be somebody they're not because they're trying to appear to be something. So anyway, that's what Covey says about it. But what's cool about it is that the original research study that I could find out about came from 1918. And it was actually another cool thing for me coming from the blue collar space, the manufacturing space, the lean space, is the study was based on survey 1,500 engineers. So it came from the technical folks who actually were studied. The technical folks come up with this 87-13. And basically what it says was, let me see, I'm just read it for you. But it was a study of engineering education published by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. It said the report summarizes surveys around 1,500 engineers who were asked about the relative importance of factors for job success. And personal qualities, often framed as character, integrity, judgment, common sense, initiative, tact, etc., were cited 7 times more frequently than the technical engineering knowledge or competence. So basically it's a 7-to-1 deal. So, 7/8, about 8 components total, 7/8 is 0.875. So that's where, when John talks about 87-13, that's where the numbers actually come from.
I might use that in my research.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, that's the academia piece, man, that I've been looking for, and you just got it, dude. I love it. Oh, that's good, because that's one of the things where I didn't know the research behind it, but as I talk about it more, I use 87-13 all the time when I'm teaching or talking about anything. And when we're talking about leadership, which Maxwell defines as simply influence, right? So when we're talking about having influence on people, the first time I heard that was in your book, Blue Collar Kaizen. And that was the first time I saw 87-13, but that immediately hit me, as you and I have talked about, because you can feel it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to have the statistics and the study behind that, but you just, as soon as I read that, I'm like, I know that's true, because there it is right there. Blue Collar
Kaizen. My Bible. I keep it right next to me all the time, man. I love
it. It's really good. But that's where I was like, immediately, as soon as I read that, I'm like, that's That is very powerful, very important, and we can't skip over that. And you're talking about lean, and I think that lean kind of, it's one of those words that, because it's very general, can get stolen and turned into different things, right? And I do feel like what was easy was the processes are easier to talk about, right? The processes are easier to see the waste and to see the need for the change and to go make the change. But building character is so much harder to do, right? And I've really loved all that you've done with your book studies to go lean on character. But that really is, they said you stopped doing lean. I say you started doing more lean, because I would define lean, if I'm putting it as a big pie chart, I'm going to say 87% of it is based off who you are, and 13% of it is based off the fun tools that we use and we learn about. So talk a little bit about all the different things that you've started seeing in the workforce to go build and develop that character. Talk about how to actually develop character for a minute, if you don't mind, because it can be developed. And we need everyone to understand that.
Yep. So before I say that, I want to add a piece, and you triggered it, and Adam kind of triggered it a little earlier too, but I want to make sure I don't leave it out. And I want to say it early, and then I'll talk about, how do we develop our character? And this won't take but a second, but a lot of times when people hear this, they don't believe it. When we speak, Rhea and I speak all over the country and outside of the country. And whenever I'm sharing that, right after I talk about it a little bit, I should say this right here, because I know there's people in the room that, I don't know if it's 87-13 or that's old, that's 1918. But actually what's cool about that is 1918, they had a lot of character that we ain't got today. So back then they were still saying character, was the most important. But what I always tell people, forget about the numbers. That is the numbers, or those are the numbers, but forget about the numbers and just say to yourself, can you validate throughout your career that you've seen traditionally, most often people are hired for what they know, their competency, the 13%. And then they fired for who they are, their character, the 87%. Anybody can see that. If they've been working it longer than probably 6 months, anybody could validate that they've seen that. People are hired for what they know and fired for who they are. And so that's what that is. But relative to how do you develop your character? And I'm going to tell you, first thing is, it ain't going to happen if you don't want it to happen. You got to want to get better as a human being. That's the root principle right there that underlies character development. And a lot of leaders don't know when they want their teams to be better, they want to bring somebody like me in to help their teams be better, to help them be better. A lot of them hadn't studied this leadership development, personal growth. They ain't studied character development. They don't understand what it means. You don't just tell somebody to do it and it happens. They first, just like you two are great examples, and I'm a great example. We had to want to get better for us to have gotten better like we have by studying this stuff. Doesn't mean we're perfect. You guys in the construction world, and a lot of our clients are in the construction world. So I always use the phrase, I'm gonna always be under construction. My project ain't never going to be finished, when it comes to character. And for me, character development is competency development, because that's my field. That's what I do. I teach this character development. So for me, it's all the same. By 87-13 is all the same stuff, right? But so how do you do it? You got to first find somebody that you relate to. Some people love me because I'm from the country. I'm a blue collar guy. Other people don't want nothing to do with me because I'm from the country and I'm a blue collar guy. And that's where it gets dynamic, because everything starts with our values. Character development starts with your values, and it's relative. You can build great character. You can build poor character. If you can go hang around somebody and instead of saying you want to get better, you may not literally think it, but you may be making choices where you've proven that you want to get worse. So you start learning poor character from the bad crowd. We tell our kids, stay away from that bad crowd. You don't want to be hanging out with them, right? So I'm going to stop just so you can ask questions, because I don't have to stop. I can talk the whole time, but I don't want to eat it up, but I want to pause and you guys just shape me wherever you want to go, because I'm just used to talking for hours and hours and hours at a time. So
you talking ain't going to scare me.
What's that?
You talking ain't going to scare me. I love hearing your wisdom, man. But I do want to talk about, because we are using those character moments. We've been using that stand up for a few months now, where we'll start our all team meeting. We have your toolbox talk book, and it just goes through
Yep.
Yep, and it just goes through the character tips, and they're quick, like 10-minute things, and they just talk about different things about your character. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I call it hungry. You got to be hungry,
That's
right?
it.
And you got to want it. You got to want to learn, and you got to want to get better. And I think that's one of the things that today we have a lot of things that can distract us, right? And there's a lot of things like this thing right here.
Oh
Probably
yeah.
number one life killer there, and you can see my beautiful bride on
That's
there.
why you get distracted every time you pick it
But
up. I saw that picture.
yeah. Yeah, at least I'm distracted on the right thing there. But yeah, a huge killer, right? It's a time killer, it's a get better killer. And it's not a terrible thing to own that, but that's the thing is we're gonna default down to the easy to do things. And it's really setting up those habits to where you like you say the leadership drip, right? Like when can you go to start with 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Your chapters in your books are 3 pages,
Yeah,
right? So
6, 7 minutes.
you need 5, 10 minutes and you can go pick up some leadership tips there. So we can start small, right? And then I think as you start to get this good information, it makes you hungrier, right? It's just like when you go to work out or get better in anything, right? It's tough to get started. And then once you get into a rhythm of it, you find that, man, it's good stuff. And you just start soaking it up. And then you end up reading all the books behind you, Mac,
Yeah,
within
man.
a month or so. But
Hey, Mike, let me interrupt you real quick because you do you guys, both of y'all do it just like Rhea. When you know about this stuff, you talk about this stuff, and that's what you're talking about. And when we're on stage, as soon as Rhea starts talking instead of me talking, I got 1,000 things to say because she just yanks these things out of my subconscious. And something you just said made me want to go back to what I was talking about, that foundation of character. You asked, how do you develop your character? And I said, you just got to have a foundation of, I want to get better. But just like everything else to do with leadership development and personal growth, all these character traits, all these principles, there's none of them made up by themselves. They're all, it's like math or more like English, like the English language. Every word's made up of different letters, right? And you change them around, it changes the meaning. You add another one to it, it changes the meaning. Or almost kind of like chemistry, right? Add a different element to the recipe and you get a different outcome. So what I'm saying right there, or I'm wanting to say is, when we talk about getting better as a foundation, it comes down to why do you want to get better? If you just want to get better, I want to develop my character to make more money, something like that. You ain't gonna ever get there. You're doing it to manipulate in the first place. I want to get better so I can manipulate people better so I can make more money. So it's never gonna be authentic. It's never gonna come through like that. So when you started talking about the things you were talking about, I wanted to make sure that I said that because you got to want to get better to be a better person. If you want to be a better person and it's authentic, you're going to always want to be a better person. I meet so many people who jump on the bandwagon. They start listening to my podcast. They start reading my books or somebody else's books. Usually if I'm talking to them, though, they're reading my books. So I get to know them. Sometimes they go 6 months. Sometimes they go a couple of years. And then it's like they just disappear. And that's the reason they fool themselves. They didn't fool me because I don't know if they're going to stick with it until they die sticking with it. Because I know until you die and you stuck with it that whole time, don't nobody know, right? Even me, nobody knows until I die. Am I going to stick with it till that day? Because you can always fall off the wagon. And what I tell people is, I had a meeting recently and we was talking about character. And I was telling him a story about my son. One day I picked my son up, take him to the airport, and he had a rough night, kind I used to have all the time back before I got better. He'd been out hanging out in Auburn, Alabama at the college town with his buddies the night before he'd head back home, and he had to get on a plane to go home. So I picked him up, take him to the airport. He kind of late getting out there to the car, first thing, and then he steps in, and I smell he had a good time last night. He'd been drinking a lot. He probably hadn't even been home very long. And he said, we was quiet for a little bit. He didn't say nothing. We got out on the road and on the interstate, and he said, yeah, Dad. He said, I slipped last night. I said, what do you mean you slipped? He said, I went out with the guys and we got to having fun, and I started drinking. I really ain't been drinking that much lately. And he said, but I slipped last night. I said, you can't slip. He said, what do you mean you can't slip? I said, when it comes to character, you don't slip. Your character is what it is, because you can't slip backwards. A better way maybe for people to understand it is, you'll hear some people say it, some people say it about other people. Somebody will do something, they say, well, that's out of character for me. And I say, no, that's exactly in character for you. There's only one reason you did that. It was because you had the kind of character that you think it's okay to do that. And that's fine. You get to decide your character, but you don't get to decide that you slip, because you can't slip. Or you'll hear somebody get in trouble at work, or somebody famous, and they want to come make an apology, and they start out with, that's out of character for me. That's just a lie. If it was out of character for somebody, you wouldn't be doing it. Does that make sense?
100% makes sense.
We got to own it. Whatever it is, we got to own it.
I love it. And I would argue that if you take these things and you apply them in the right direction, Mike, right? And I'm sure you agree, like, they can help you build character. They can help you build competence, but it takes mega discipline to really try and drive it in that direction. I'm curious, and you're starting to allude to it as well, Mac. Like, what do you think erodes that 87% the fastest? Like, what are those things that happen or do that really prevent people from obtaining the character that they want? And then, kind of as you answer that, and you may have painted this a little bit, but do you think people like consciously evaluate their character, or is it something that they just feel afterwards?
Yeah, most people, I think, don't, unless they're reading and studying about it. Most people think character means you're good or bad. If you ask somebody what character means, that's usually what they say, good or bad. You look at all them books back there, and I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of books, and all that stuff back there is about character. So there's a whole lot more to character than good and bad. I mean, you wouldn't need but one sentence if that was the truth. But people who don't study it, they don't know what they don't know. And so that's the way I see it. I mean, if somebody's not studying about character development, they're not aware of it. And because once you learn a little bit, and if you're really interested, you're going to realize I ain't never going to learn it all. That's why you'll always be under construction. And when you were talking about slipping on the 87, and that's one reason I wanted to share, talk about this with you guys on this podcast, because the stuff is confusing in a way. Sometimes it's confusing. But it's also very simple, but it's also very complex and dynamic all at the same time, right?
Sounds like it's lean. Yeah.
Exactly. They're so related. Lean and leadership. What I always tell people, Adam, and when I meet leaders that either know about leadership and value it, or either know about lean and value it, but they're missing one of the components, I always tell them, if you got people on your team that love lean, most of them are going to love leadership. Or if you got people that love leadership, most of them are going to love lean. There's just a lot of principles that overlap, because both, I mean, leadership's like the ultimate principle, all the principles of personal growth and character development, but they're also the same ones that make lean highly effective. And because they're principles, like going slow to go fast, that's the principle. And a lot of people in lean know about that, but it ain't necessarily a lean principle. It's just a principle, like gravity. Gravity applies whether you know about lean or whether you don't. It applies whether you fly in a plane or climbing a ladder. It doesn't make any difference. Gravity is gravity. The stories you tell about it to share the practice of that principle is going to be different. Practice is always different from different type jobs or different environments or that sort of thing, but the principle is always the same. But what I'm getting at that I really want to touch on with what you asked me was, like, the 87% it's always 87%. So it ain't like you're losing some or gaining some. It's that 87-13. It's just like, what is it? Is it good? Is it a good 87? It's a mix, right? Because we're not perfect. If I had 100% perfect character, I'd be at 87% of that 100%. If you did the math on it, it'd be weighted at 87% of the equations.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I had 100% performing at 30% of character, then it's still being weighed at 87%.
Yeah, 30 times 0.87, right? You saw that in the Kaizen book. I tried to explain it in that one chapter where I did the math, right? Yeah. And so the 87-13 just means that 87% of our influence, whatever it is coming from our character, whatever it is, right? It's going to always be 87% of whatever our character is. Yeah. So if I could have perfect character, I'd be getting 87% of my influence would come from a score of 100, if you want to put it into math terms. Or if I had terrible character at the other end of the scale, let's say I had a 0, meaning a 0 would probably be like the most extreme negative character that I could have. 87% of my influence would be coming from that extreme negative character place. Does that make sense?
It does. So is that 87% measurable? I guess maybe that's my question.
You could measure it. I can't really measure it. I mean, not mathematically. John Maxwell's got a for as far as leadership goes, he's got, I think it's something to do with the 5 levels of leadership. He's got a leadership assessment. It's based on the 5 levels of leadership. That's what it is. He's got a leadership assessment that you can take, and it's based on those 5 levels of leadership: position, permission, production, people development, and pinnacle, which is really about respect. And so you climb up those levels of leadership, you take his assessment, and it'll kind of help you, give you a snapshot of how you lead relative to those 5 levels. But it's all about character. But that's the best thing I've ever seen to measure it. But still, let me just say, it's still relative. Everything's relative.
Yeah, and you've used 5 levels, and I like the term you use, managerial. And I feel like that's a good way to measure, because in the managerial level, people follow you not because they want to, but because they have to, right? That's that position level. And then there becomes the people are starting to follow you because they want to, right? And they want you to influence them. So, I mean, leadership is influence, but leadership can be good and it can be bad, right?
Yep.
So one way we can measure it is we have to take a serious look at the people we're leading and say, are they following me because of my title, because they have to follow me, or do they want to follow me? Would they want me to follow, would they want me to lead them if I wasn't in this position setting, right? So I think that's one way we could measure it. But I mean, ultimately what we want is we want to influence people for good. And so we have to make sure that we are definitely being curious with the people we're leading, because we can think we're doing a good job, but until we ask them if we're really being effective, we're not going to ever know.
Yeah. And what I'm saying when I say I can't measure it, meaning I don't worry about measuring it. I ain't got a survey. If somebody wanted to hire me to come in and survey everybody and tell them what somebody's character level is, I ain't got nothing like that, because that ain't what I do. There's probably plenty of folks that do it. But what I teach people is, because for this stuff to make any sense, y'all read my books. Y'all know how I try to make stuff simple, right? Coming in, doing a survey or some big assessment, all that's complicated. It's also easy, but if you got money, you just spend money, bring somebody in, some consultants, they get to do a survey, they come back, tell the leaders what everybody's score was, and maybe tell the individuals what the score was, and usually nothing happens. But when you want to get better, when you want to know, again, it's so relative is the term I always use, because it is relative. And I'll share with you why. But what's easy to do is look at each principle and measure it. Let's just say you guys both thinking about hiring me. And let's say Rhea's standing here beside me. She's not today, but let's pretend she's beside me. You can't see either one of us. We're behind the closed door. There ain't no window on it. You know, there's 2 people. You don't know even male and female, color, size, age. You know zero about us, except one label says it's got a door. And the only thing you're going to know about us is what it says on the door. One door says trustworthy. One door says dishonest. And I say, you get to pick which one of these people you want to pick to be on your team. And see, everybody would say, well, obviously I picked a trustworthy person. What if you're a criminal? What if you're a criminal and that's your life is a life of crime? You don't want somebody trustworthy, because what they're going to do? They're going to turn you in, right? Yeah. So you want somebody like you. So that's why it's always relative. Who am I? That's why inside of a company, we got to come in. I'm not saying me. I'm saying if I was the owner of a company, we got to get some people in. I got to lead. Whatever we do, we got to get everybody aligned behind a certain set of principles. And I'm going to decide what that is if I'm the owner or the CEO, because my values are the ones that's going to shape this organization. That's one example. I could say in my teamwork book, the first chapter, be growth oriented. So I could have on that same door, forget everything, wipe the slate clean. One door says growth oriented. The other one says closed minded. You get to add one to your team. So that's the way to start seeing the value of these different traits. Just pick a trait, any kind of character trait you can define, single it out, stick it on that door. I could walk in a room, unless it's people being silly, but if I'm walking into a room of a company that wants to get better, most people want to get better. If I'm on stage and I ask that question, it doesn't matter if there's 100 entry-level people sitting there, if there's 100 CEOs sitting there, they all going to pick the same door. But then I'll ask sometimes, think about this. This is the one I ask, and this will apply to the lean folks and you guys. Now, let's say you're a lean leader and you're going to hire somebody to come into the organization and got the two doors again. You don't know nothing about the people, but we're talking in the context of change, leading change. So when change, one door says when change happens, this person shines. The other door says when change happens, this person whines. If you're trying to get an organization to get better, what kind of person do you want to deal with change? The one that shines or the one that whines? Everybody knows we want a shiner, but then sometimes I'll ask the audience, I say, yeah, that's easy to look out the window and know which one you want. But how hard is it to look in the mirror and see which one you are? How you deal with change? Because we just talked about, when I asked that question, see, and to put you guys in the audience in context, what we're talking about is which person is going to have the most influence, right? In an organization that values growth and development and moving forward, getting better, which person, the one who whines or the one who shines, is going to have the mindset to help us move the organization forward. So it's always in the context of influence. So then when I ask the audience, are you a shiner or a whiner? I always say, you ain't got to answer, but you already know if sometimes you whine when change happens, what's happening to your influence. You don't get picked. Your boss don't ask you questions. They don't want your feedback. They don't care to talk to you. Neither do any of the other high performers in the organization. So that's where that great divide happens. You get on one side or the other.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, because there's a couple of things there. We need to talk about at some point the mirror and the window, because that's very important. But also, what you're saying, if we think of the tree growing, right? Or if we're our character, if we're growing, we have to root, right? We have to root, and then we start developing, and then when you start to see the fruits of what's inside, right? And the problem is, a lot of times people want to root in the distractions, or they want to root in not building up the character, but then they get mad when that fruit shows that they're not ready, right? And that does take time, and it grows over time. But that's the thing, is people are watching, and you're having influence no matter what you're doing, right?
100%.
And people are seeing which door they would put you in a door, right? They can tell which door you would be going in. So as then they're picking their team, they're going to take the one that's going to shine in the situation they want to go into, right? I see this in kids sports a lot, where they want that instant win. They want that instant trophy, that instant medal. And the problem is, like, especially with wrestling, like, you can see, if you don't put in the work on the mat and practice and go through the grind, then when it comes time for the match, man, and you lose the match, like, you can't just go turn it on all of a sudden. Like, it's developed in the grind, right? And I think that's a great, sports are always a good teacher of character if we keep it in perspective. But that's part of that too, is what are we doing? Are we taking those plays off to build our character through the week, right? Because when you go talk to the elite athletes, they're going to say never take a play off, right? And so what are we doing? Are we taking those play off during the week, and then we're mad when we don't get that leadership position? We're mad when we don't get that promotion, or we don't get that opportunity.
I'll add, I like you said, every time either one of y'all talk, y'all trigger something about something I already said, and it's like I need to go down another layer. That's why it's always another layer. It don't matter if you go down 50 layers, there's 50 more layers to go when you talk about leadership. But for you guys, and especially the folks listening who maybe just talking about this is new, I want to show you how quickly things change and gets very dynamic. Remember, I said it's simple. Like I gave y'all those scenarios with the door. It was simple, right? This person shines when change happens. This one whines, right? How simple is that to pick? Everybody says, I'm going to pick the shiner. Okay, now let's give you 2 traits instead of 1. And you got to understand, people ain't made up of 1 or 2 traits. People are made up of thousands of traits, right? So now let's say whiner, shiner, but the whiner is also dishonest. Now, the whiner is honest. The shiner, they're going to shine and be ready for change, but they're dishonest. So the shiner's dishonest. The whiner is honest. Now you got to pick one of those people to be on your team. Which one you going to pick?
Yeah.
Probably going to pick the whiner who's honest, not the shiner who's going to steal from you and do all that kind of stuff. Y'all see how it gets complicated, right? That's what we as people, as we start growing, we got to start identifying every single principle. and everybody can validate this for themselves too. You have to, in a given situation, for me to build trust with you, I got to get everything right in a situation. Guess how many things I got to get wrong to lose trust with you? One. And so I may be in this situation and I get 100% trust with you. And then instantly the situation changes because it's changing all the time at work, at home. Situations constantly changing. Life is fluid. So I maybe get 100% trust in this moment. 10 seconds later, I may have messed up 5 things instead of one thing, but let's say I only messed up one thing. That moment was distrust. So then overall, my relationship with the people I'm dealing with is kind of like the average of who am I? But distrust is heavily weighted because it's on the 87% side. It's the character side, Adam. I can do that. That one thing that I do wrong is on my character side. And if I lose a lot of my character influence with you, it's weighted heavily, right? 87%. That's why you can lose 100% trust with somebody because there may be one trait that you slipped up on, but it's one that matters a lot.
And so I hear everything you're saying, Mac, and I'm going to push back on you a little bit here because
I like it.
Typically when the doors that I look at when I'm hiring somebody, they don't say trustworthy or non-trustworthy. They don't say whiner, shiner, right? They say, hey, this person went to this university or this person went to this apprenticeship or this person has done these type of jobs and has this mechanical experience. And so, you know, I hear what you're saying and I agree with you that 87% is character. Why do most organizations hire and promote people based on that 13% of competence? The best wrench turners get promoted, right? The people who achieve the best, they know the most get promoted. Why? What is the paradox there?
I love that question. I love when people push back because it's always really great questions because a lot of other people may be thinking that. But the reason is they value competency and not character. And that's a reflection of their character, right? Because I got clients who their first interview, they don't talk about competency. They could care less about somebody's competency because they're going to hire for character first. And until the person can pass the character test, they don't get to talk about competency. They don't even worry about it. I mean, I got one client as he built out the electrical construction business inside of an MEP. He got a couple hundred people now, but when he started, he had 0. And he's been someone I mentored for a long time, since 2013. And he took my Front Lines book, Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines, which is, how to lead myself well, how to become a high impact individual, a sought after employee. His first interview, when he started building out that electrical construction division, his first interview, if I could meet you and pass the shake my hand test, if we could just get past, I'm all right being in the room with you and you all right, just interacting with you for a few minutes. He ain't going to spend long with you. He's going to give you that book and say, if you want a second interview, read this book, then call me up and we'll set up a second interview. And then at the second interview, still ain't going to talk about competency. Now he wants to talk about what you got out of that book. He wants to see the book. He wants to see, did you mark it up? Did you fold the pages? And also, if you don't call him back, he just spent $20 to never talk to you again. And he didn't want to talk to you anyway. It's like a filter, right? So that's what I'm saying. What I just said may sound crazy. And it will sound crazy to most people who are hiring in the construction industry, but it ain't going to sound crazy to the people who have a high degree of character and value building a team of people with high character. Not only are they going to hire for character, but that same leader I'm telling you about, he's got a couple hundred people now. He's vice president of electrical construction. They got about 100 million almost in sales or something like that now. From 5-6 years ago, he had 0 people and 0 sales, and he had never built a team. And that's what he's built in 5 years from scratch. And he had never been a VP before. He was like a project manager or something before that. So that CEO hired him based on his character. And I'll give you this as another example. When that CEO hired him, I introduced them to each other. And I told the CEO, I said, I don't know about the guy's competency because I don't do electrical construction work. But I've been mentoring him at that time, that was 5 years, 2018, I think. I'd been mentoring him like 5 years. I said, I know about his character, though. He's been growing like crazy. I talked to him. At that time, I talked to him. Only person I talked to more than him for the first 5 years was my wife, Rhea. Besides that, I talked to him all the time. He called me all the time. And we talked about all kind of character stuff, not business stuff, character stuff, people stuff. So I told that CEO he had a large MEP, but he didn't really have the E going. He just had an E to support the M and the P, but not a real business. So I said, I know somebody. So I introduced him. And the CEO, first thing they did after they talked, I think they talked by email, maybe, can't remember. He wanted his address. He sent that guy a book. He sent him a book. Said, read this. Let me know what you think. So he sent that guy a book. That guy had been mentoring, read the book, and he wrote a big long, what I got out of it kind of deal, send it back by email. That went on for like 4 or 5 books over 6 months. That's how that CEO interviewed him. That was all it was. And then once he got enough feedback on that thought, then he hired him. And because he hired him and the way he did it, the guy who I've been mentoring, who also values character. See, people of high character, it works both ways, Adam. If I got high character and you interview me and we ain't talking about character, I ain't working for you. I'm interviewing you too, because I want to work at a place definitely that's got a boss and leadership people who value character. That's why a lot of people want to work at a good place, but the good place has got people with high character. So if I ain't got high character and I want to work at a good place, I ain't qualified. And then a lot of bosses, they want to hire really, really good people. They want the good people on their team, but they don't have high character. So the good people don't want to be on their team. I pretty much read a job description. You know, you put it out online or wherever job descriptions are these days. I don't even know, but wherever they go, whenever people trying to hire somebody, most of them, I bet 95, if not 99% of them ain't got nothing about character. And the reason they ain't got nothing about character is the people who's doing the hiring ain't worried about character. I got clients who most of their job description would be talking about character first. Leadership, leading yourself well, working well together, all this stuff. But most places, they just want a body to fill a slot.
Is your team level limited by the character of your boss?
Absolutely. The character of your boss, the people doing the hiring. See, the people doing the hiring, they ought to have more character development than anybody relative to hiring people of character. Whoever's doing the interviewing ought to have a high degree of character. Now, if I got a high degree of character and I interview you, I'm going to be looking for a high degree of character. But then I send you off to a boss got a low degree of character. You ain't going to think much of me when you get there. But if I got a high degree of character, I'm going to be telling you that before you go there. I'm be saying, you know, I'm the only one here reading and studying this stuff. I care about it, but don't come in here expecting everyone else is. But hey, if you value this, I'm one person who's on board. And if you want to deal with this and help me and be another person that's on board, me and you together going to have twice as much influence. In between, you know, it's like synergy. 1 + 1 don't equal 2 when we're talking about this kind of influence, because I'm going to influence people that's going to influence people, and you're going to influence people that's going to influence people. So 1 + 1 might more like synergy, and maybe 1 + 1 equals 8, 10, or 11 instead of 2. But you're exactly right. And any leaders at a high level, meaning CEO or owner, that understand this, they know it's a holistic approach. That's why that same leader that I was telling you about a minute ago does 4 book studies each week with his top, basically 40 leaders in his company, 10 in each session for 30 minutes. He covers basically a chapter or 2 from my book, one of my books. And he said that's the most valuable 2 hours of his week every week is those 4 book studies. And that's a leader that values character development. Most leaders ain't going to do 1 5-minute book study for a whole year because they don't value developing other people. But he also does the first Saturday of the month. He's been doing this for 10 years. He even did this at other companies. 10 years, the first Saturday of the month, he leads an online book study with anybody in his company that wants to be on there. So anybody in his company, the first Saturday of every month.
The Kilgore leadership drip. I've been on that a couple of times.
You know who I'm talking about now, Jason Denham, right?
Yes, sir.
You've seen it, you felt it, and he opens it up to people on the outside. He does some recruiting like that. There's people in the construction industry in his city who ain't getting development in their company, but somehow they met Jason. Jason invites them to be on his call because he's fishing for character, but he ain't trying to manipulate, because if they don't want to join his team, he doesn't care if they do or they don't. But if they get on there and they get on there regular and they have high character and they do want to join his team, well, they already went through the first interview. They showed up, and they showed up more than once, and they kept showing up when he didn't offer them a job or anything like that. So he's like, oh, these people really value this. And he's hired a lot of people that got on that call like that.
Mac, I'm super interested in like how pressure like inserts into this calculation, right? Does character reveal itself under pressure, or does pressure create character?
Both, right? It definitely reveals itself. Andy Stanley, he says it always. I love. He says this. He said all character tests are a pop quiz. Every test of character is a pop quiz. When it's time to have a whatever degree of character you have, your kid comes in, tells you something bad you don't want to hear. Well, your character, whatever your character is going to deal with it. You don't get to say, wait, come back 6 years after I decide I'm going to go read a bunch of books and work on myself and all that. No, it's better to have, prepared in advance. Ria calls it pre-traumatic growth. We hear post-traumatic stress, and Ria talks about post-traumatic growth, where after you've had some stress, you grow and you're able to deal with that stress better. But I love how she talks about pre-traumatic growth, like I've been doing. Grow before you have the problem. Grow before the tidal wave hits you, so you're prepared to deal with the tidal wave. The person I used to be, I'm 56 years old now, but the person I used to be, if I hadn't learned this stuff, I might have killed somebody already. I've been in jail. That's who I used to be. But I ain't even had those situations since I got down this path. I don't even get angry. So I used to have bad problems in public with people.
When's the last time you felt yourself challenge your 8713 principle?
Oh, it's challenge every day. That's the pause button, right? Every day there's something that could cause me to be angry. In traffic, everywhere I'm challenged every day. And I'll just share with you on that. I was talking to some young girls. My wife, she speaks to a lot of sex traffic victims. It's been saved and rescued. They in a home or some type of shelter, and sometimes they're in a program where they're there for months. And she invited me to speak with them. Or actually, they was talking about Ria and I have a book called Change Happens, and Ria was leading them through a book study in the Atlanta area. She does all kind of stuff with these girls when we're home, and they heard about me. They called me Mr. Mack, so they was like, "We want to meet Mr. Mack." And so Ria figured out how to get the folks to let us bring me up there. I told them, about some of my anger issues and who I used to be as a person when I was drinking and cussing and acting a fool, what I call it, all the time. And really focused on my anger, though, and focused on the power of the pause button between stimulus and response. We had a freedom to pause and choose our response. And I was telling them all that. And when I got done, I said, "You ladies have any questions?" These are teenage girls. One of them raised her hand, and she's like, "I do." She said, "Do you ever want to go back?" I said, "What do you mean go back?" She said, "Do you ever want to be that person?" Because see, a lot of these girls, they might have got into some drugs or alcohol, some stuff they ought not to have been into, which got them into the other situation that got them to be in where they were become a victim of sex trafficking, that kind of stuff. That's no excuse for that to happen to them, but their choices got them in an environment where that was easy to happen to them. And a lot of them know that. And now they're in this home, and now they got away from some of the bad stuff, probably all the bad stuff while they're there. And they're afraid when they get out, are they going to go back? They probably already have those thoughts. So that's why they were asking me. She says, "Do you ever want to go back?" I said, "Every day I want to go back." And they all looked, they were their eyes got big because they wasn't expecting that answer, right? I said, "Every day I want to go back." And she says, "Why do you want to go back?" I said, "Because it takes zero effort to be that guy." And what you said triggered that thought, because I could get angry every day. I guarantee you, Mack Story, I get angry multiple times every day. I have the opportunity every day, even at home with Ria, every day, because I'm such an idiot normally without any effort. I'm just an idiot. And I used to say things used to flip my switch, but when you realize you had the freedom to choose your response, nothing flips your switch except for you. The thing, what I didn't know before was I just flipped it all the time. I'd walk around my hand on the switch, waiting for somebody to let me flip it, because I love being angry and the adrenaline and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's every day.
You're triggering. I want to go back to I think the thing is, you figure out that you do have a choice and responsibility in that, right? And I go back to the mirror and the window. And I think you're looking for who's that person that I can blame to set me off. Who's the person that's going to walk through the window I'm going to get, right? Instead of now it's looking in the mirror being like, no, I can decide if I'm going to let them have that power to make me mad or not, right? I'm gonna either accept or reject that, and I'm gonna let that bug me or not bug me.
Yep. That's exactly
think-
right.
Yeah, I think the mirror in the window is a great lesson you've taught in your books.
Yeah. And the point of that is I got to take responsibility. That's looking in the mirror, because other people somebody may do something that would cause me to want to be mad. They may 100% do something wrong. I may be at work and somebody says something to me, like used to be people use the word trigger. I don't know if it's a trigger, but I just like when they said it so I could get mad. So whatever you call that. But throughout my whole life, if somebody in the past used to tell me to shut up, I go ballistic. If my dad used to tell me that a lot growing up, I would go ballistic with him. And I ain't got a relationship with him anymore since I graduated high school, pretty much, because he's that kind of guy. I don't value his character. I love him, but I don't want nothing to do with him because his character is terrible. And so, what was you asking me? Oh, the mirror in the window. So now, when you're talking about blame is I look in the mirror and I take responsibility. The opposite of blame, right, is responsibility. Extreme ownership, if you guys follow Jocko Willink and all that sort of stuff. So extreme ownership is in the mirror, not out the window. Whole book, all my books are like extreme ownership for whatever subject I'm writing about, because it's all about looking in the mirror, taking responsibility. But Myron Golden, he's got a quote that says, blame is the most popular excuse. Blame is out the window. I got to look for somebody to blame. And when Rhea and I are speaking, we always talk about blame. And I say, why do people blame in the first place? Let's say something happens between me and you, Mike. And if I blame you, and whether anybody else agrees with me, doesn't matter. But if I talk to other people and they do agree with me, all that does is reinforce me for blaming you, because people blame. So usually I go talk to somebody else. They would blame too in that situation. So then I'm just going to talk to a lot of people that don't look in the mirror, that look out the window, and they all get my advice, through the window at me and you. But if I'm blaming you, and it's easy. See, if I blame you, I ain't got to do nothing to fix it, because it's your fault. You got to do everything to fix it. And I think you got to do everything to fix it. So does all these people I've been talking to. They all agree with me. So I tell you all about that. I talked to Joe and Fred and Sarah. They all agree that, it's your fault. You need to do something to change it. That means you got to do everything to change it. Let's say whatever that is, you still did it. But I'm a proactive person instead of a reactive person. I look in the mirror and I say, regardless of what Mike did, I'm responsible for fixing it. Even if you don't care, you may be blaming me. So now I got to say, instead of me having to do nothing, no thing, I got to do everything. Most people don't want to do everything. They rather do nothing. Most people are lazy. I might not even like you. And now I got to say, I got to figure out how to fix this. That's what leaders do. They figure out how to fix things. They have to figure out how to get things done. The leader that I'm talking about in this situation is me leading me. The hardest person ever in my life to lead is this one right here.
Yeah.
And I have 100% control, 100% influence with me. And how hard is it? Anybody out there that wants to look in the mirror can validate right now how hard it is. Every one of us ought to have done something, multiple things already, and we hadn't done it. And ain't nobody stopping us but us.
Yeah.
So, Mac, let's bring this back to construction, right? So pressure's constant. Things are changing. Schedules are slipping. Change orders just came through. The inspection just failed last week. We can't get qualified manpower. Most of us have this kind of default version, right? And a lot of times, for some people, I hear it's throwing hard hats and yelling just shutting down, really, right? And then for others, maybe it's blaming and doing the things you talked about. So what does the power of that pause button look like at 6:30 in the morning when the crew's looking at you, trying to figure out what to do?
So I wouldn't be throwing stuff. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would be throwing stuff. That's what I'm saying. Man, pressure's on, right? Like, hey, time is money and we're losing days by the day. And hey, the crew's looking at you like, what's the next move? And you've had 7 change orders and an inspection fail. And what do you do with all this overwhelming pressure? And then I hear like, now Mack's telling me I need to work on my character, but I'm struggling with the 13% competence. What is your advice to that person out there?
Yep. And the thing is, you got to start, right? Like Les Brown says, it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity to have an opportunity and not be prepared, right? And the reason that came to my mind is what you're asking me is, how does someone that doesn't know how to lead well on the spot? And it doesn't happen on the spot, right? From today to tomorrow, ain't nothing going to change. Right? Nothing going to change. If I've never read a leadership book, and I've had a bad day today, and I come in tomorrow and I ain't never read a leadership book or listened to a podcast, I'm gonna have a bad day tomorrow too, right? So where do I start? And that's the key principle. It's my most important principle I ever learned in my life. Between stimulus and response, we have the freedom to pause and choose my response. In a scenario like you just said, if I'm the superintendent or the foreman and that's my crew, that's what you're talking about, right? You're asking me to assume I'm that person and I got all that stress.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And what can I start doing to strengthen that 87%? Yeah.
Yep. You got to, the 87%, first of all, you got to realize, like when I was doing lean, it's no different than your scenario you just said, except it was manufacturing, but it's no difference. We can tie it to, I'm going to take my lean story, but it's the same as that environment. And you and your audience can probably see it. Like when I walked in to lead a Kaizen event as a consultant, I come in on Monday morning, and it's way harder than what you just said because I don't even know these people. And I ain't got weeks and months. I got 5 days. And I ain't got 5 days to teach them some stuff. I got 5 days to give them some results. Because we were not going in there to put a plan together on paper in an office and then walk out and say, here's our plan. We ain't done nothing, but it's what y'all need to go do. I wasn't that consultant. I was the one to come in and get results. And that's why it relates to what you just said. Because I could walk in and not, I have never done what you just talked about. I could walk in and lead that team you're talking about tomorrow. And I may not get great results tomorrow. What I wouldn't do that most leaders are going to do, they're going to make a lot of withdrawals tomorrow. I ain't going to make withdrawals. I'm going to make deposits. And I'm talking about withdrawals and deposits into that trust account. Because most of those people they don't need to be managed. They need to be led. To manage them, I have to have the competency. But I wouldn't walk into a crew like you just said. It's very unlikely that crew, let's say I had a crew of 10 people. Very unlikely is that crew, all of them 18 years old, none of them's ever worked in construction. They don't have zero competency. Most of them are highly skilled folks. Have been doing it. It's a mix of people, some new, some old. So the first thing I'm going to do, because you could put me in that job. If you was the owner, Adam, you could put me in that job you just talked about. And I'm going to go in there. Nothing may not look a whole lot different tomorrow. Could even be going slow to go fast. I'm going to go in with my intent is to build trust. And so I'm going to do, because I know about character, I know things that create distrust. I ain't going to do none of those things. I would walk in, you could make me the boss of these 10 people. I ain't going to walk in and act like a boss because I don't know nothing about what they're doing. But see, a problem with most bosses is they walk in, they act like they know everything everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Because they've been there before. And I've been on crews, Adam, where I walk in, I go in early because I'm there to build relationships with the people because I was building trust, right? I'm connecting with the people. I wasn't getting paid to be there early. I showed up early. This is something a leader could do, but a lot of them don't do because they ain't leading, they managing. So they ain't worried about what I'm talking about right now. So I'd go in early. I get to meet the crew. I get to hear them poke fun at each other and make jokes. And then I've been sitting there talking to them for 30 minutes. They all talking. They telling about what happened yesterday, or if it's multiple shifts, they talking about what happened last night on the night shift. They just talking, they communicating all the stuff you want your team to do. And they wasn't talking about junk. They making jokes like we all do in the blue collar world, but they were talking about good stuff. And then here comes the boss. Let's say 7 o'clock, we're supposed to start. Hardly ever was the boss there at 7. So that's automatic withdrawal. I was talking about making a withdrawal in a trust account, right? You expect me to be there at 7 and you ain't there at 7. You're losing trust with me if you're there at 7:05. It's just a fact. You're free to do it, but it's a fact. If I got to be there at 7, you need to be there at 7. And if you're a leader, you're going to be there before 7.
Yep.
Right? A manager, at least a manager needs to be there at 7 to be a good manager, but a good leader is going to be there early. And so what I would see is whenever this leader did show up, or manager in this case, whether he was on time or later, whenever he walked in the room went silent. As soon as that happens, I know these folks, they don't like their boss. They ain't got a lot of trust. They about to be dictated to. They got a dictator just walked in because the most awesome team, and then the boss walks in, they're like this. Rolling eyes, arms crossed. The leader tells them what all they want them to do, basically like a dictator, just calling out the play, right? Just calling the play. This is what we're going to do. This is what you need to do. What you need to do. This happened yesterday. And I just walked in. I don't know nothing about what they're doing, Adam. But I know a lot of stuff he just said does not make sense based on what I just heard before he walked in. He ain't never going to hear that because they don't trust him. A lot of leaders, like you're talking about, they'll say, I'll try to get feedback from my team. Andy Stanley says this. He said, leaders who don't listen will soon find themselves surrounded by people with nothing to say.
Yeah.
If your
point.
team ain't giving you feedback because they don't want to, because a lot of times when they give you feedback, you override them, or they may give you some negative feedback, and then because you can't control yourself with the pause button, you get reactive, and it turns into a big mess. But whatever it is, when people won't talk, it's a lack of trust. Yeah. And so that's why I could walk into a team and start building trust. And again, I'm going to take you, it still applies. These are principles. But I'm making a hypothetical right here that I could do that. Most people are like, Matt couldn't walk in not knowing nothing about construction and lead a construction team. I could 100% lead it because I ain't worried about the 13. My team knows about the 13. And when I walk in on Monday morning, I'm going to say, hey, I don't know nothing about what y'all are doing. So whatever y'all ain't counting on me for that because I don't know nothing about it. I say, you may see me walking around with you asking stupid questions because I want to learn about it. And I may ask you, can I help you? And then if you need some help, you work on that. I'll run and get something, or I'll go do whatever you got. Or I'll hold this, or whatever you think I'm qualified to do. I'll help you do that. And automatically they're going to see me as being authentic because they already know I don't know nothing. Wouldn't take but me talking about 5 minutes on site. They'd be like, this guy don't know nothing.
My buddy Chili Chiles over here is obsessed with Mr. Ted Lasso, and I cannot think but just Mac going into a construction site, running that job is the ideal Ted Lasso experiment out there, man.
Dude, that's exactly what I was thinking of him walking into that soccer team knowing nothing. And
yes,
you're right. The pro players, they're already pros, man. They know what they're doing there. That's not what they need. They need someone who's going to make everybody align, right?
Yep. And my example, I don't know if Adam can still hear me, but hopefully he can. But my example that I was talking about, I was going to share was with my son. And y'all read about it probably in the Kaizen book. I can't remember what all books I write about it. But he started with me as a consultant at 19 years old. He started walking in on Monday with those teams of people. He only watched me for 3 weeks. He didn't do nothing but watch me for 3 weeks, facilitate a Kaizen event in a manufacturing plant that had 1,200 people. And he had zero experience. He never even been in a manufacturing plant unless he was taking a tour, with me as a kid growing up in one of my plants. But he come in and he did that. He watched me 3 weeks. Then I turned him loose. I mean, you imagine that. Imagine you guys in the construction business. Imagine you bring in somebody 19 years old. They never even worked in construction. Ain't never learned about lean. They greenhorn. And you're going to turn them loose in 3 weeks leading Kaizen events in construction. Eric did that. My son Eric did that in manufacturing. He did it so well, they kept him hired as long as I was there. He was working through me, but he was by himself. He was in a different state than I was in after 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks, he didn't lead with me. He watched me lead. The 4th week, I was in one state. He was in another state. He was coming in with the PowerPoints and the handouts that I was using. And he was facilitating Kaizen events at 19. And that boy killed it. He killed it from week 1. And it's the same exact. Awesome. It's the same. That's why I'm telling you guys, Adam, it's the same. It's principles. What he knew how to do was lead. Because I had told him, you got to read these leadership books. Read. And he was a natural leader. I said, when you walk in, tell him, hey, I'm 19. I don't know nothing about what y'all doing. I don't even know nothing about lean, but I'm about to facilitate this lean event. We're going to learn together. My job is to ask dumb questions, which won't be hard, and teach y'all some stuff, and we're going to learn it together. But I can learn it, you can learn it, and our goal is to make your job better by the end of the week. And we run into any obstacles I can't remove or I can't get removed, I can call my dad right here, and he can call owners or anybody else in this company and help us get these obstacles removed. I'm talking about he killed it for 2 years straight, week after week after week, 19 years old.
I've seen some interns come in do that. Again, it's character, right? They don't know anything about the industry, but you can just tell when they're hungry. You can tell when they got it. They got that, I call it that killer instinct. And that's the character. I think, your example is bringing up some important observations for me. And that's, you're saying, hey, I don't know. And you're telling the team, I don't know. And I think to be a good leader, you have to be confident in yourself enough to be okay, to not have that fear of being embarrassed, right?
Yep.
Like where
Character trait.
you have to say, you know what, I'm going to tell you all guys that I'm a goofball. I'm going to tell you I don't know. And when you break that ice, and it's not like I don't have to be the coolest guy in the room. There's a lot that can happen there, right?
Yeah,
You
humility.
break that tension down. Yeah, humility.
Yeah, I say in my books, I'd say there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. It's called humility. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
bosses they're not confident, they're arrogant because they lack in humility. And so they create distrust because every single thing we do, guys, everything we're doing with our team, we're either building trust or distrust. Every interaction with our team member that we're interacting with, and also with anybody who's watching. So
yeah,
when you start learning about this, you got to start thinking, I'm going to be more effective if I got more influence, not less. So to have more influence, I got to have more trust because trust is the foundation of influence. So that's huge what you guys are saying. And it's just the truth. And I always tell people there's a lot of leaders out there, some of them managers, bosses, but when I'm speaking to big audiences, I always say, it's hard to swallow the truth when you got a mouthful of pride and ego.
yeah,
And the truth is, a lot of these bosses, it's 100% the truth. Jocko says it. I say it. Anybody who understands leadership at a high level says what I'm about to say, and they know it's true. And other folks, they don't have a clue because they don't know what they don't know. But there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. That's when somebody says, well, you don't know my team. Well, if they're your team, I know you allowing them to be on your team the way that they are. Character and competency, whatever their character and competency is, if they're on your team and you're the leader, you're okay with it. Well, we can't fire somebody. Oh, can you develop somebody? The one in the mirror to
yeah.
start with?
Yeah, I think Jocko, I don't remember exactly the quote, but essentially it's not, it's what you tolerate as a leader is what the team's going to do, not necessarily what you expect. I think I've heard it also said, not what you expect, but what you inspect, right?
Yep.
The tolerate piece is a big deal. And, you can, like we talked about the being on the map of leadership last time you and I talked, right? But you're, as a leader, you're either making it happen, allowing it to happen, or preventing it from happening.
Absolutely.
And that allowing that can be a good thing where you're empowering somebody. It can also be a passive thing, right? Where you're being passive and you're letting people do things that you wouldn't approve of, right? And you're tolerating that to happen.
Yep.
That also would build distrust because even though you think you're letting them do what they want to do, they're now not trusting that you're going to hold them to that level, right? So that passivity will create distrust.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I love how there's a book called Radical Candor, and they talk about you challenge directly and care personally. And when you do both of those things, you're living in this radical candor world where people are being developed because you care about them and you're challenging them in the right ways. And I guess I would love to hear from you, Mac. What's one question every leader in construction? Because again, remember that we really value that 13% in construction. We're taught to have all the competence, to answer every question, to never be vulnerable, to never show that you don't know. That's just what we're taught. So what's one question every leader should reflect on really deeply ask themselves before they ask someone to follow them?
What they should reflect on before they ask someone to follow them.
Yeah, what's a good question every leader should reflect on or every manager should reflect on before becoming a leader?
It always comes back to development for me. First thing I want to know, I want to know it from any leader I'm going to follow, is I would ask it about them. But if I'm the leader and I value the stuff we're talking about and I want people to follow me and we got to 13%, let's say we got that covered. I want to know, what am I doing to develop myself consistently and continuously beyond, this is the key, beyond what's required for the job. Because most everybody's going to do what's required for the job, whether it's competency or character. But the question is, just in most generic term, is what am I doing above and beyond what's required to grow and develop myself? Because to become a good leader worth following, you got to be growing and developing yourself. Because I can put that on the door. 2 leaders back there, you get to pick which one's going to be your boss. One of them's growth oriented, and the other one is stagnant. They happy with what they did 20 years ago, what degrees they earned, the experience they've gained over the last 10 years. They happy with that. But imagine if you're a growing person, you value growth and development, which both of y'all are. Which door are you going to pick? It's obvious, right? And that's the same thing that this reason I'm telling you that that's my question, Adam, is because if I'm leading a crew, if I'm in the construction business, doesn't matter what level I'm at. I could be at the lowest level leadership position, or I could be the owner of the company. I want to attract growth-oriented people because I want to grow my business. The only way to grow my business is to grow people, because people are going to be the ones to grow the business. So I got to model being a growth-oriented person. And one reason that is, John Maxwell talks about, Adam, he explains this and calls it the law of the lid. Are y'all familiar with that by chance?
With the fleas? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
What's that?
The one with the fleas?
I don't know about the fleas, but it could
Okay.
be. He may talk about that. What I'm talking about is the law of the lid, he calls it, and basically says the organization can't grow any higher than the lid.
Yeah.
But the organization could be my team. It could be a 4-man crew out digging a ditch for electrical construction or for foundation of some type. Doesn't make any difference what the work is. But let's say it's a 4-man crew in construction and I'm the leader. And I'm the leader. That's my organization. That organization can't outgrow me as a leader. And what he's saying, I could also be the owner, and the organization could literally be the whole company. So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say that's our character, my character as a leader. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's say I'm a 3, and I'm not going to attract anybody that's above a 3. If I do, once they figure me out, they're going to be gone because they ain't following. 4s don't follow 3s unless they following them with the intention of growing them. Like me as a consultant, when I went in, I was always following people with less of a character than me, but my intent was to grow those people through my character, right? So everything's still, it's always relative. But let's say on a scale of 1 to 3 as a leader, I'm a 3. That means I'm on track mostly 2s, maybe some 3s, but 2s or 1s. And so let's say I'm a 3 and I attract some 2s and 1s, and we start growing. I start growing a little bit. I'm up to a 4. These 2s and 1s, now I'm developing them so they can grow. But I only do a little development. So I'm a 4. Some of them grow themselves. They do a little more development. They start listening to podcasts, reading books on their own. So now let's say they're a 4, but they keep on going, doing above and beyond what I'm doing. Now they become a 5 or a 6, but they right here. They becoming a 5 or 6, and they just banging their head against the lid on the organization, which is the leader. And we're really talking about character, but it could also be competency. If you got an incompetent leader, the team could have more competency, so they're bumping their head against the competency lid. But whatever it is, it's the leaders. I'm talking about their character here. So what happens is these folks either can't beat them, join them kind of thing. They get frustrated and go back. That's some of the people I've seen that follow me. They get gung-ho and they learn a lot more than their leaders. Then their leaders don't want to grow. And see, these people, instead of going and growing somewhere else, they don't want to go. They like their retirement that's coming, or they like their pay and their benefits, so they don't want to leave. So they just stay right here and stay frustrated. And they banging that lid because they can see character at a higher level than the lid. Like they'll learn, hey, the leader ought to come in here and talk to us, ought to connect with us, ought to ask us questions, because they're learning that's what high impact leaders do. But their leader's not doing that. And they're reading these books and they just get frustrated. So they sink back down. But no matter what, the lid on the organization doesn't get any higher. We either sink back down, or those of us that are growing leave, go find somebody with a higher lid that we can keep growing. But this organization stays right here. That's why it's so important. You know, these leaders that have rough teams, they think they're rough teams. They don't follow. They don't do all this stuff. The team is nothing more than a reflection of the leader. Now, that's a hard pill for some leaders to swallow. We're talking about pride and ego and being humble. If I got a bad team, I know why I got a bad team, because I'm a bad leader. There ain't no other way that it could be. Yeah. So I don't know. That's a long answer. All my answers are long, and they could be a whole lot longer because there's a lot of stuff that goes with it.
So riddle me this, Mac, on the 87-13. Think of the 87-13 pie as a whole person, right? And you got character and you got competency. You also have the circle where you have You have your hands, you have your mind, and you have your heart, right? And, at that managerial level, you can buy the hands, right? You can go get the work. And what we're talking about is, hey, guys, we need to build our character. So we can go pick up the Mac books and we can read the Mac books, and that we can start training our mind. We can get some tips and tricks on the mind and honestly, like, I would think the hands and the mind. Basically, if I can go pull it up on AI and I can go say, how do I go build my character? I can get the list, right? That would be the stuff that fills the mind. So I picture this big circle and I picture these little dots on the 8713 side that have character building components to it, right? But then there's this heart piece, and that would be kind of this gel that comes in and it fills in all these little circle spots, and that makes your 87 pi. And to me, that's the hard part that I think we struggle with on how do you go repeat building up character, because we can train the hands, we can train the mind, but there's this heart piece that makes the leader someone they want to follow, and that to me is caught, not taught. And I really feel like that's a piece that is so key when we're building up teams. There is our heart in this? Are we behind this? Are we about this team, and are we about learning with this group? And they can feel if you really care about them and love them and are really for them or not.
Yep. Yep.
What do you say to that?
Yep. And I got some stuff on one of my books about that, and I'll just share with you. It's actually the 10th value in my book, 10 Values of High Impact Leaders, and it's the value of significance. And I started learning this from John a long time ago, but I've learned it from, a lot of people. But I teach about it. And it's the difference in that book. I think the subtitle for that chapter, the value of significance, I think the subtitle is, are you going to settle for success? And it's the last chapter in that book, because success is about me. I could be a phenomenal guy that you guys love to follow, and I may lead you very well, but I'm doing that for the purpose of me doing very well. Right. So that's a great place to be. Success, that kind of success, most people ain't leading at that level, but let's say I am leading at that level where I got a great team. I develop myself. I grow and develop you. But the why behind it is so that I can make a lot of money. I can live a good life. Maybe I can take off vacation, not worry about the business, whatever it is. We're all good. All this stuff we're talking about, we're all good. But the why behind it is really so I can be good. Right. I'm not using and abusing you. I'm bringing you with me, but it's really all about me. Yeah. And so significance is not about me. It's about you. And so what I'm trying to do is help you become successful. We still going to kill it while we're together. We're going to kill it at a whole nother level when you really feel like we're doing all this for me to help you become successful. And that may mean you go work somewhere else. And that may mean when you tell me you're going to work somewhere else, if you're an A player on my team, I'm going to write you the best reference you've ever had. I'm going to tell them people to call me. And I'm going to tell them I hate to lose you. And I'm going to do all I can do to keep you. But if that's where you want to go, that's where I want you to go. I don't care if you make more money, less money. I want what's best for you in your life. What I want out of you for me is while you're on my team, I want you to be a superstar. And I'm going to lead in a way that makes you want to be on my team. And if I lead like that, most of the time you ain't going to want to leave, even if you want to leave. And Jason, that VP of electrical construction I was telling you about, that's the way he leads people. I call him leading them out the door. Whether he's getting rid of them sometime or whether they're getting rid of him, he can fire them, but they can also fire him. That's called quit and find a new boss. And so sometimes they're leaving to go somewhere else. As long as they're a good person on his team, while they're on his team, he supports them. A lot of them still get on that call he does. After he's terminated them, they still get on that call. After they terminated him and they left to go to another company, they still get on that call. What I'm saying there, he got such a good relationship with these people that after they leave for any reason, the good ones, they still get on the call. The really good ones start doing this stuff in their own company, the new company that they go to. And that's what he wants. He wants to grow because it's just like a football team. And I know you guys use the sports analogies a lot. Let's say, let's go with the current this past year or just recently this year, Indiana's, they tore it up for the whole year. They were highly successful. They got the national championship. That coach probably not worried about losing his job. Y'all agree?
Agree.
Yeah.
he probably going to get a raise and they're going to try to keep him or something if they got to do whatever they got to do. They don't want to get rid of him. But a lot of his assistant coaches, what might happen to some of them, you reckon? They're going to have some opportunity, ain't they?
I might get picked off.
If they want it, they're going to be able to go. If he's such a great leader, they may not want to go. And he may say, I'm staying, just give these some guys more money so they don't go because I'm worried about winning instead of getting me more. I ain't worried about, I got plenty enough money already. If you want to give me some more money, don't give me more money. Give these guys more money so we can keep them. We can do this again next year and a couple more years, right? That's because I ain't worried about me. Now I'm worried about the whole team. But I ain't just saying, I want you to stay. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to get you some money. I'm going to help you get you a raise. If you think you look good with one championship under your belt, how you going to look with 2 or 3? Let's go do that before you go. What you going to be worth with 1 championship versus 2 or 3 championships, right? But that's the thing. Let's say he loses. He probably is going to lose some of his top people. So he's at the top. When he loses some top people, you think because he's at the top, he's going to attract some top level people from other places, or he going to attract the bottom level? He's going to attract all of them, right? But guess who he's going to get to pick? The top. He's going to get to pick the top candidates. And he's going to plug them right in up here because this is where they at. He ain't going to plug them in down here because this ain't where they at. They up here. They killing it. And they're good where they were. That's why he picked them, is because they're good. So now he's going to learn from them, but they also going to learn from him. It's like when Saban was doing all that for so long. He had you see him, them 2 coaches that played, right, were his coaches before on his team. And he's got so many coaches. He come like a coaching factory, just pumping them out. But he kept winning because of what I just told you. He kept attracting the top folks. But let's say last year I was 6 and 6. What's the chance I might lose my job? Pretty high. What's the chances the assistant coach is going to lose their job? Pretty high. But let's say I didn't lose my job, but I lost some assistant coaches. I ain't going to get the assistant coaches that want to work with me that's going to work with the Indiana coach because I ain't qualified. Character and competency. You with me? When we're talking about this character thing, when I watched that Heisman Trophy presentation, I already knew that quarterback, Mendoza. I already knew he was an awesome young fella. But when I heard them folks, a lot of people probably just didn't even pay attention to it. But he said before he went to the Heisman Trophy deal, he wanted a list of all the people who were going to be on stage, the former winners. He wanted to know who they were. He wanted pictures of them so he could do research, or either somebody give him the research. He wanted to know who they are, but the reason was so he could connect with them, right? He wasn't just worried about, I'm going to get my award. I'm going to go get my award, hopefully. He didn't know if he was going to win until he did win. But when I win, whether I win or not, I'm going to connect with these other folks that I'm going to meet. I'm going to know who they are. I'm going to know about them. He's already building trust with those people. He's expanding his network at a completely different level compared to somebody who got on stage and could care less about these people because it's all about me.
Yeah, that's true.
Mac, he did that when he left California.
The football team.
Well, before he got to Indiana, he did the same thing. Yes, sir. He asked for every one of his team members' photos, names, where they grew up, and he tried to learn the roster. And that's what great leaders do, man. Yeah.
Adam, you know how many times I may ask a leader that's got 20 people on their team, how many people's on their team? A lot of times they got 20 or less and they don't even know how many people's on their team.
Sad.
They may not know their names, even some of them with 20. If I work in a trailer all day, we get some new guys. I may not get out there and wherever they're working and meet them. A leader will. If I ain't got but 20 people, I'm going to know everybody on my team if I got 20 people. Because a manager say, I'm too busy, I ain't got time to go out and meet people. Leaders say, I ain't got time not to go out and meet these people.
I'm a firm believer. Every superintendent should know every name on the job site. Even if you've got 100, 200 people, man, go out there and meet the people, learn them. That's like your attention is their reward in a lot of times and instances. Yeah, I love where you're at. Like, to me, you're talking, it's not about how smart you are, right? It's not about certifications. It's not about resumes. Today's been about like who you are when the pressure hits, right? Because you can't schedule trust. You can't put on your CPM character, like, I'm going to need character here, right? But your crew, they know the difference. And Mac, I believe you're right. Like 87% of the reason people follow you is nothing to do with what you know, right? It's all about who you are. And yet for some reason, our industry obsesses over that 13%. So
Well,
I
you gotta
would,
have it.
you
You
do,
gotta have it, and the better you are at it, it's important. It's highly important. You got to have it, but that ain't what's gonna separate you from the crowd, because everybody got to have it. You know, the ones that do it the best, they still got to have it to do the best, but character, they don't have to have it, but they got to have it to stay in business. If clients walk up, customers walk up, and let's say they're a person of high character and they don't like a bunch of profanity and they don't like a bunch of blaming and pointing fingers and trashing up the place, you may get one job, but you ain't gonna get the next job, because they got options. And one option is to go see if we can find somebody else. And they may find somebody else that's just the same, but imagine if they find somebody who's got a performance team. You're going to attract them people like crazy. And I got to say this, guys. We did this in manufacturing plants, and you could do it in the construction business too. Most leaders wouldn't do it. A leader would do it, but managers of people, they wouldn't do it because it caused too much chaos, and they wouldn't do it. But a leader would do it in a heartbeat. So we did it on purpose, because we were trying to figure out, we were teaching this company. It's where I was doing lean consulting for 4 years. And we were trying to get them to lead. I taught a lot of leadership, but there's people struggling to get people to lead. And they kept asking me, well, how we get these people to actually lead? I said, I'll tell you exactly how to do it, but you probably don't want to do it. He said, how you do it? I said, well, you take the paint manager and make him the sheet metal manager. Take the welding manager, make him the paint manager. You see what I'm saying? Take all these managers, because see, all these managers most of them grew up the ranks. They worked in the sheet metal, and then they got to be a lead man in the sheet metal. And then they got to be a supervisor, and then maybe a foreman, and then a superintendent, and then they got to be manager of the big sheet metal shop. So that's what they know. So a lot of them lead from a place of competency, because they know all about it, and they work around. They've been all through it. As soon as you take that guy who's a sheet metal wizard and you stick him over to the paint department, he got one option to be successful: learn how to lead. Because he don't know nothing about all that stuff. Now he's got to depend on those people. He got to do exactly what Eric did. He got to do exactly what I did every week when I went into lean. Even though I knew a lot about lean manufacturing, lean and manufacturing, I still act like I didn't, because it wasn't about me. It started with me, but it wasn't about me. So we did that, man, and those guys got frustrated. Some of them wanted to quit. They were so frustrated, and they was wanting to quit. But once they got through it, then they wanted to rotate. Then they figured out how to lead. They figured out they'd go anywhere. And once you learn how to lead, you actually like to lead. Most people, though, I'll tell you guys this, because it touches on what your question was about, Adam. When you don't have leadership up through the ranks, and I'm going to go all the way to the top, because that's what the law of the lid is about. It's about the top. The organization can't outgrow that lid. If I don't value leadership at the top, I ain't worried about you doing any leadership out there in the trailer. I want you to focus on the 13, right? So if I value 13 at the top, that's what we're going to value all the way through, top to bottom, left and right. But if I value character development, there's going to be time for that, right? Everybody's going to be involved in it. Jason, that electrical construction VP, my tips book that you were talking about, Mike, every time they do the safety meeting, they do a tip. And he was just telling me a few days ago, he got called out to do the safety moment they got like 1,000 employees or something. I don't know how many leaders there are, formal authority leaders, but all the formal authority leaders, safety people, they have a monthly call, a safety call. And Jason got invited on the last minute with no preparation to do the safety moment. And he said, Mr. Mack, I didn't know what I was going to do. And he said, I knew exactly, do what we do. He said, I went and I pulled out, I think he said 32, tip 32 out of the first tips book. He pulled that out, and he led that video call with all the leaders, just like his crews do out on the job site. He read through it. He talked about it. He talked about the importance of safety and culture, because culture built on trust is much more safe than a culture built on distrust with control and compliance. When you got commitment, you get commitment with trust. You get control and compliance with distrust. At best, you get control and compliance.
Yeah, I love the trust being the balance between like, hey, am I just going to check the box compliance, or do I have enough like psychological safety? Do I feel safe enough to speak up and be able to offer continuous improvement ideas, right? And I think lean really, like, the root of lean is to live on that continuous improvement side, but yet still bring standards to the process. So it's such a tricky balance. And I love how you brought in, Mac, trust is so important in that balance of, am I just here to check the box because the world's on fire right now? And sometimes that's the case. Or do I have some time to experiment with this and see if we can increase flow, or, take this person and put them in this other slot and let them learn from boots on the ground. Like, those learning opportunities are invaluable.
Yep. And I'll share. I was in a $1 billion company. I had like 1,700 employees on site, and Rhea and I were there for 2 weeks straight. And we facilitated some book study training and some culture development speaking we did with them. And one of the supervisors, he asked phenomenal questions, because it's the same way in manufacturing. It's all these industries focused on their 13%. That's why it's kind of a principle in a way to managers, not a principle to leaders, principle to managers. Leaders focus on the 87%. You got to have the 13, but they focus on the 87. 13 is almost a given in a way. But managers, they just focus on the 13. They don't even understand there's an 87. They ain't worried about the character side. They focus on the competency. So one of the supervisors asked, he said, I hear all this stuff, Mac, you saying, it sounds good. He said, but we busy. We busy all day. And it's the same way with the construction guys, right? Busy all day, nonstop. After they leave, before they get there, their brains they're busy all the time. I said, I know you are. He said, even if we want to do this, how do we do it? I said, I know you are, because in a company, I said, like this, because until we went in there, that they didn't value character. We were the tip of the spear for cultural transformation when we came in. I said, you guys value competency. You value all the management stuff, because the management duties fall under the competency piece. Management is competency. Like tools of lean, that's competency piece. Actually getting people to buy in and sustain the gain, though, that's character piece. That's the leadership side. I said, so what happens is, in a company that values the 13%, the competency side, what's going to happen is all of you leaders are going to get brought in, and your day is going to be filled with management tasks. If you ain't doing management tasks, somebody thinks you need something to do, because that's what they're from top to bottom in a management type company, a competency type company. They want everybody focused on that. So I'm going to use my books back here as an example. That day they had paneling on the wall. The paneling's got them little black lines. Every 6-8 inches, got a black line down the wall. I ain't got that, but I got these books. So let's say this is your 8-hour day right here. All that's competency stuff, management stuff. That bookshelf right there is full. You notice it's full all the way across? I bet you I could go slide a piece of paper between every one of those books. Y'all agree?
Yeah.
That's where you put the leadership in when you're that busy. When you first starting out, you got to learn it, and you got to stick a little slice of leadership. He says, give me an example. I said, okay. I said, let's say you guys walking the floor, walking the site, using y'all's terminology in construction. Let's say I'm walking the site. I'm busy. I may be taking a tour. I may be with my boss. We on a mission. I'm walking. We going somewhere. Me and him's talking. We ain't paying no attention to you. When I walk by you, I say, how's it going, Adam? That was a slice of paper in between, because I'm busy. I ain't got time to stop and talk, but I got time to acknowledge you as I pass by versus ignore you as I pass by. See what I'm saying? That's one little piece.
That feels like the heart piece that you were talking about.
That's it. That's it. Let's say, here's another one. Let's say I'm walking, same thing. I'm on the site. Maybe I'm by myself, but I'm on a mission and I'm busy. I got 50 other things to do, but right now I got to do this one thing. I'm on a mission. I'm flying past, and Mike stops me. He says, hey man, I need to ask you about something. I said, I'm busy right now. I ain't got time. I'll come back. On my way back by, though, I'll stop. And if you want to be a leader and you say that, guess what you got to do on your way back by?
You best do it.
Stop.
You got to stop. That's sliding in a piece of paper. Telling them you'll stop on the way back by ain't sliding it in. That's management. That's me managing this moment, trying to get rid of you so I can carry on about my task. But if I see what happens, when I make a commitment, I create hope. You want to talk to me and I say, I'll be back. I just created some hope. Creating hope builds trust. But now I got an option. I either get to build trust or create distrust. If I come back, I build some more trust. If I get busy and forget or just am busy and don't stop, I remembered, but I still don't stop. Well, now I created trust. So I tell people, don't make commitments you can't keep. Don't make commitments lightly. If you make a commitment, you got to do everything you can do to keep it. That's the way you slide in a little piece of leadership. And as you keep sliding those little bitty pieces in throughout the day, eventually you start getting more time to actually lead because people start taking on some of your responsibility. Maybe they just start thinking for themselves instead of playing dumb like people do when they got a boss instead of a leader. Instead of just say, hey, boss, so-and-so went wrong. They may know exactly what they need to do. They may have did it before and know what they need to do, but they're going to play dumb because they don't like you. And they're going to cause you some grief and just ruffle your feathers. So they're going to call you and you got to come over there and they're going to play dumb and you're going to play boss and you're going to tell them what to do and you're going to feel good and they're going to do it, but they just wasted your time. As you start to lead, they may call you up and because they trust you, they may not know exactly what to do, but hey, boss, I got 3 solutions for you. And you say, all right, do number 1. Quick, it's gone. I already been thinking before you got there. Instead of me just waiting for no reason, doing nothing, goofing off, scrolling my phone, whatever it is I do, I'm on a mission too, and it's to serve you as a leader. Because I can be a leader too, even if I'm not the boss. I can serve the leader just like the leader can serve me. You serve me well as a leader, I'm going to serve you well as a follower. It may be that I don't even call you. I take care of the problem because I trust you. And I want to make you look good because I like you. So I don't want to cause no problems. I'm going to address the problem. Or maybe I'm learning and growing, so I don't even have the problem in the first place. I prevent the problem.
I think that's a key point that in our construction industry, Adam, we have a lot of people that grew up in that compliance era, right? And I mean, there were some tough scenarios. I mean, the Great Depression, World War II, there were some situations that some of that older generation came in and they just had to get it done. They just had to do whatever it took to go get it done. And that obviously passed on into that boomer generation where it's just you got to do what it takes, and it's that compliance piece. And then there is that, I guess, that misperception where it's like if you're so busy you don't have time to go learn and or to try new things. And what you're saying right there is so key, is if you just take little bits of intentionality and opportunity through that busyness, you're going to get people that are now empowered and on your team. So instead of now them just doing the bare minimum that they have to do because you're buying their hands, you're starting to get that mind, you're starting to get that heart, and now they're all seeing opportunities to get better, and all of a sudden you get more margin. And or if you apply lean tools, or you start getting the scrum board out or whatever it is, and you start doing twice the work in half the time, now we have great margin. We start to build those times where we can build character and we can get people excited about what they're doing. It doesn't have to be a place that you don't want to go to just because it's work, right? It can be a very enjoyable thing to do if we can get that mind and that heart bought in.
Yeah, and I'll share with you guys, we've been talking about the Blue Collar Kaizen book a little bit, and I know you guys have read it, but for the listeners out there, you know, when I'd walk in every Monday, pretty much at least 4 years straight, literally every Monday, I get a new team. We had a new mission. We had to actually implement, we had to come up with some changes and then implement those changes and then validate it that they were actually an improvement and show the difference before and after relative to real results, and do a final presentation on Friday for all the leadership teams. That was the way every one of my Kaizen events, 99% of them was go accomplish something. And I can tell you the first one I ever led, we had, we went from 30 people on 3 shifts to 21 people on 3 shifts. In 1 week, we freed up 9 people out of the process. We didn't fire them. They went and did other jobs in the plant. We had plenty of overtime and all that sort of stuff. But what you're talking about, or what I'm thinking about with these lean teams, I had 1 week. Most of them, I tell you, most Mondays, I show up, people don't like me. They didn't like the last consultant. That's one reason they didn't like me. They didn't like the last guy. So they don't like me. A lot of times they don't like their boss, who didn't give them any warning. They were even going to be on the lean team till that Monday morning, about 5 minutes after 7 when they got there. So they got no respect for the people. They didn't get time last week to plan this week, being that they're not going to be on the job. That happens a lot. A lot of them don't like change. the one whose area we're really going to be impacting, he don't like that. Got 5 or 6 strangers that he never even seen them in his workspace. Now they're responsible for implementing change, and he's on the team, so he don't like that. A lot of times they don't like each other. That was my team on Monday. I walked in, they didn't like me. I had to build trust. All this stuff we're talking about is where I learned to do it. So I had to do it fast. I mean,
Right.
I didn't have all week to build a relationship. We had to have results by Friday. I had to do everything super, super fast. And most people would say, you shouldn't spend the first 4 hours on Monday teaching stuff like this. You got a week to accomplish a mission. Guess what I spent the first 4 hours on Monday doing? This.
87%. Yeah.
That's right. I was talking. They got to know me. I connected with them. They got to feel the stuff Mike was asking me about. They got to hear me talk about, hey, if you don't like working here, you need to learn this more than anybody else, because this stuff right here will make you highly valuable somewhere else. But what I knew was, if you learn this stuff and the company is actually going down this path, if you stay here to learn it, you're going to be one of the most influential people in the company. You're going to have all kind of opportunity. You're going to get raises. So then you might not leave. That's what I know. And I tell them that. I say you might learn and not leave, or you might learn and make it easier to leave. You're going to have all kind of options. So that's the kind of stuff I talk to people. And then after lunch on Monday, then I put up the lean PowerPoint relative to quick changeover or standard work or TPM, 5S, whatever it is we were working on. I put that up after lunch, and then we start going through it. And I don't even go through it all the way. I give them a little snapshot, but I'd go through a little bit, and then we go do a little bit. And then we go through a little bit, and then we go do a little bit. We learn, do, right? Back and forth. We wasn't adjusting yet, because we just learning and doing. Because what we were doing, though, was capturing the current state. We wasn't actually doing nothing to change. We were capturing the current state relative to whatever it is we were going to do that week. So we do that on Monday afternoon and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we got a plan. By the end of the day, Wednesday, we always had to plan. But remember, we're going to Friday. So we done developed the current state. We done developed a future state on paper. Thursday, when we come in, Thursday was always implement the future state, whatever that was going to be. And we didn't leave Thursday till it was implemented. Then Friday morning, we come in, capture what we did on Monday and Tuesday, because now they understand what they're doing. Plus, it's a lot easier because a lot of the waste is out. So Friday morning, we come in and capture what was the future state is now the current state. So now we capture that, and then we compare the before and after, and then they put together a presentation. And then usually about 2 o'clock, the team would have a presentation to the leadership team of what they actually accomplished that week. I sat at the back. I never did the presentation. It wasn't about me. It was about them. So then when the leaders come in, the folks took over the PowerPoint. They turned it on. They told them all about what they did. They told them all about the results they got, because I didn't get the results. They got the results. Also, each hour, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the first hour, I should say, was some more of this stuff we've been talking about. And I wrote a chapter in that book called Priming the Pump. So I spent 4 hours priming the pump Monday morning. Then I spent an hour each day priming the pump. And people will say, you wasted that time. We got results every week, ridiculous results. I remember the company that I went in, and that's where I was booked for 4 years straight every week. The very first event we did with them was like 376% improvement in output per person per hour. And they hated me on Monday. By Wednesday, they were starting to like me. On Friday, they loved me because their job was easy and they were killing it. They wasn't working overtime anymore. And I had a great relationship with them.
But
Yeah,
so
that's
Mac,
good.
Mac, I'm starting to feel this like interesting connection here, right? Like when you told the story about the manager who goes and like runs into somebody on their way to look at something on the job, and they're like, hey, yeah, I'll be back. And you use that as a way to distinguish the manager and the leader. And I love that. And to me, it's like in our industry, in construction, we do a lot of scheduling, a lot of planning. And to me, that's like telling that person in the field, like, yeah, I'll be right back. And then I'm going to go do my thing. And the missing piece in construction, in my opinion, is everything you just talked about. That Kaizen piece that, hey, if I'm going to be a leader and I'm going to come back and actually engage and talk to that person that had that question or had that issue or roadblock for me right now. Like, I'm being a leader now if I'm doing Kaizen in the field. If I'm not going out into the field, if I'm just walking the field and I'm looking at the work that's getting done, I'm not a leader. If I am walking the field, or should I say standing the field, if I'm standing in one spot and I'm watching the workers complete the work and really understanding, like, again, this is that slip of paper, like understanding how they're doing the work and do they have all the tools they need to do their work? Is there one little thing? Maybe engage with them, make them smile, make an enjoyment environment. Like, to me, that's the leadership piece. And so I think, like, I would look at a lot of the Lean Builder Nation, even those folks who have read the Lean Builder book, and maybe they're doing the last planner system, and man, they've got a great master schedule and their pull plans are on point and their 3-week look ahead and it's great, and their make work ready process wonderful, and their weekly work planning's doing okay, and they're pulling statistics and they're decent. I would say, okay, that's great. Like, you're doing half of things. Like, you're being a great manager. But if you want to step up and really do the things that Mack's talking about here, like, you got to go out and engage with the field and do the Kaizen piece and do it from, like Mike said, from the heart, and like really, really care about these people that are doing the work, because they don't have a whole lot of control over changing that system. And a leader in construction really does. So I would encourage us in Lean Builder Nation, like, reflect on your own jobs. Are you coming back to that person or that thing that stopped you on your way to your mission? Or are you just scheduling and are you just planning, running a system to get a plan together? Or are you actually going out there and making sure that it happens and watching it and looking for those small but critical increments of improvement that tell people, hey, I see you, and I see that that's a hard job, because that's that hard piece. That's that slip that paper piece. And that's where we're really starting to work on the 87% of the project.
It's just huge. I mean, it's weighted so heavily. You got to do that sort of stuff. I remember going into one plant and a lady, I walked up. One of the things I'd always do when I first get to a company doing lean, I'd just walk around, talk to the people, and try to start building trust, right? Connecting with them. One time I said, "What would you do if you were the CEO?" She said, "I'd get me a broom." I said, "What?" She said, "I just need a broom." I said, "You ain't got a broom?" She says, "No, I had to walk over to that department and get their broom. And a lot of times I can't find it. You know, they ain't done 5S or nothing. So she don't know where the broom's at." And then I said, "All you need is a broom and your life will be better." She's like, "Yep." I said, "Well, hang on. I'll be right back." Guess what I did? I went and got a broom. If I had to go to Walmart to buy the broom, I went and bought the broom. Hardly ever did I have to do that, but I would have if I had to. And then when I bring it back out, I'm giving it to her. You think I had more trust or less trust with her right off the bat?
100% more, yeah.
You think she told people about me? Something positive?
Absolutely.
She started talking about me, right? Who is this guy? He come in, and that's how you spread trust. And I got to tell you guys, I know maybe you're getting ready to wrap up. When you learn about this, and I learned it from John, and I validated it through all these hundreds of teams I led, people who follow a leader because they want to are 40% more productive based on research study. I think it's far greater because, and again, it's relative to how good a leader are you. Most of my teams, we do 200-300% improvement in whatever it was we were doing in 5 days. That's what pretty much every one of my teams, we got those kind of results. But research shows 40% more productive if I follow you because I want to versus have to, which means if I got 3 people on my team and they follow me because they have to, and they start following me because they want to, I got a whole new person on my team worth of capacity, because instead of bad mouthing or sabotaging or holding back all that stuff, now they're helping. They're helping me. They're helping each other. That's what you get when you go from being a manager of people to a leader of people. You imagine 40% plus productivity increase. And that's if you don't even learn lean, you get that. So imagine if you get that and you get lean. But see, a lot of people, they get resistance to lean. And when you get resistance to lean, that's, for me, that's a big flashing red light that says these people ain't following because they want to. They follow them because they have to. And they don't have to do lean unless they want to, because they can just resist.
Yeah, your Kaizen event, Lean talks a lot about Kaizen events. And when you talked about your week, I was just thinking about that story of sharpening the axe, right? And think Abe Lincoln talks about, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree. I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening the axe, right? And I also think of the story of the woodcutters where one's working tirelessly trying to chop down a tree and he doesn't hear his other guy who's racing, and then he finds out that he was spending the time sharpening the axe, right? And that's what you're doing. When we're talking about 87-13, you to build that 87, you're taking the first part of that day and you're sharpening that character axe, right? And then they're now motivated, their eyes are open to the character part of the day, and now they're going to look at where they're going, right? You always drive where you're looking, right? So if we have people looking for character, if we have people looking for the wins and the positivity, I think of the day that you just described, Adam, where walk in and you're behind schedule and you got the people upset. What's the one good thing that we do have, that we're all here, that we're all safe? What's something that we can start getting people to see, some bright spot that we can start walking towards, right? I feel like that's what you're describing in the Kaizen event. You get them empowered to start looking for where the wins are, right? And people love getting behind and capturing wins with you.
Yep. Provoke thought and raise awareness. I mean, that's what leaders do. This kind of thought, though, relative to character mostly, because the competency is usually covered. What Adam's saying, I agree. In all industries, most people have competency. Very few people even ever get fired because of competency, because the competency is usually covered because it's required. Whether you got to get a degree or a certification or on a job training, whatever's required from the competency side, usually we get it done. And from a leadership side, if I'm lacking in competency, it's a character problem. I ain't willing to make a sacrifice. I ain't willing to put in the work. Whatever it is, it's always a character. Character is always the root cause of everything that's not right in our life, whether it's at work or it's at home. It's huge.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Go ahead, Adam.
no, what do you got? Finish this up.
No, I was just gonna say we're starting to rival a Harry Potter movie now, so I do think we got to start wrapping this thing up. But Adam, you had a final out there?
Yeah. So I was going to say the same thing as we land this beautiful plane here. I can't stop thinking of the 13% being really schedule focused, right? Really technically schedule focused, and the 87% being what it takes to get that schedule done is out there getting to know the people, getting to know the work, getting to see how the work's getting done. And really, if we want to be successful and take anything from this podcast, at least me personally, tomorrow when I go to work, it's like I'm going to spend 13% of my time focused on planning and scheduling, and 87% of my time out there building relationships and focusing on developing the character of the people doing the work such that the work is clear, simple, easy, and fun. Like, to me, those are critical things. And so I'm curious, Mack, as we're closing down here, we're trying this new experiment. Chili Bro and myself kind of taking on a Lean Builder podcast. What do you think, man? How'd it go? Suggestions for improvement? Plus Delta us real fast, will you?
I like it. I ain't got any negatives. It's I mean, I like you asking me about the two of you being on together doing like this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. I like you guys ask different types of questions, but they're about the same thing. So that's good. All of us are doing the same thing. Y'all asked me to be on, so y'all being nice and letting me talk more a lot, because y'all can talk obviously without me being here about this stuff. But so that's cool. But it's cool because we're all feeding off each other. I can see one of you wanting to say something, but you respecting the other one that's got something to say, and they talk. So that's a leadership trait, right? Listening. And I'm here to talk, not to listen. If I was here to listen, I wouldn't be talking quite so much, but I'd be listening to you guys. But I think it's great what you guys are doing, because you got some overlapping skills, but you got totally different experience for the most part. I mean, even if you're in the same exact industry, you got different experience. So that leads to different questions. You may hear something I say and think one thing you want to ask. He may hear something I say and think something completely different and ask a question. I don't see any negatives. The only negative I might see is each one of you don't get to ask as many questions. Y'all get half the show.
Hey, Mac, we had John. We both do. We talk about you a lot, and we just absolutely love everything you do. I want to say I'm loving this Mac attack sandwich we got going here with Mac right in the middle. And I'll tell you, I really want to just say thank you. I want to You have been a great mentor to me, and I really appreciate you are what you're saying. And you will take my call, and you'll be happy to mentor me whenever I got questions. Rhea and you both spoke into my daughter and encouraged her as she read Rhea's books, and even gave us more stuff that we can focus on with our leadership drips. And I really appreciate you. I really appreciate Rhea. I appreciate all that you're doing and throwing out there in the community to just focus on the people side of life. I mean, that to me is what it's all about and why we're here. We are here for people, and we are here for a purpose, and it's to connect to those people. And that's really what it's all about, no matter what we do. And I just thank you for being a great leader in our industry, and I just thank you for the mentorship that you've provided.
Well, I sure do appreciate it. And one more plus for you guys is I thank you for taking the time to do that cool background. That's cool. If you do that for your guests, that's over delivered, right? That's doing something beyond what's required. Do them custom backgrounds. That's cool. So
that's
you might
all
not like
Hootsy,
doing it.
man.
I don't
He's
know,
the
it takes
man.
time, but I appreciate it. It highlights your guest better. I do podcasts as well, but that's a cool way to make your guests feel a little more important when they show up. So I like it.
And so I was going to say that if you do want to hear Mack listen a little bit more, he does a podcast. He does a frequent podcast. You're out there all the time. You can go to bluecollarleadership.com. You can check out the books. You got some really cool gear. I see the Under Armour polo on. I see it hitting my feet all the time. Mack, I echo everything that Mike just said. You're a hero in my book. You lead by example. Man, I want to be you when I grow up, baby. Like you are an inspiration. I've talked on the podcast before how you've breathed life into my relationship personally and just me. And so I continue to just echo what Mike said. I thank you for being a person, for being willing to go out there and lead and be willing to look dumb maybe sometimes and just be that old redneck from Alabama, and I think that's awesome, man, because that's what people are looking for is real people, and we feel that authenticity. And I know it draws me to you so much. And man, I love you for it. And I'm grateful for you're in my life, and I'm better because of it. So thank you for leaning in to the Lean Builder Nation and Mike and I and doing this for us. How do you want to end this thing, man? What do you want to say? How do you want to go out? And when you're done talking, hang around tight because I want to debrief here.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd just like to share where the folks can read the first 5 chapters of Blue Collar Leadership for free. You don't have to put in your email. I ain't going to spam you. I don't do all that stuff. Just check out bluecollarleadership.com/download and look for the Blue Collar Kaizen thumbnail, and you can read the first 5 chapters. And there's a lot of books there. You can probably read 100-something pages for free. So I ain't trying to sell you nothing, just trying to give you a little extra value. But for the folks out there, if for no other reason, learn this character development stuff, leadership development, whatever you want to call it. I call it just character development. But the point is, leadership development equals character development. Personal growth is the foundation of leadership development. So how do you become a better leader? You focus on your own development. And the stuff those 2 guys said, I helped him talking with his daughter, and it poured into her. Had a lunch with Adam and his wife, and they're talking about personal things. That's another way you can build trust with your people. You lead them in such a way that you're dropping some golden nuggets on them from time to time, filling in those cracks, as I was talking about earlier, and they get a better life out of it. And they start making improvements at home. You can't hardly run those folks off. So as far as I'm concerned, I like this Hoots on the Ground podcast. I got to say again, I like this background. When I come on, I had to salute that flag. So thank y'all for doing what you do. Make a difference and keep climbing.